All right, we have a 1950 Oldsmobile. This was a transmission, 3-speed. This is a 1-year only transmission. The internals and everything are the same as the 38 plus CAD LaSalle trans. We're going to take all of the guts out of this, including the tail shaft and housing, and we're going to be putting it in a 37 LaSalle top shift conversion that was done in the 50s. So I've already started taking some of this apart. The tail shaft is fairly easy. You just remove the bolts on the outside and the housing comes off. You can see the tail shaft. There's a bearing here, and this is the speedometer gear. Take off all the bolts on the top. The two with the larger size have a shaft on them. This shaft goes down inside the rod here on this end for the reverse gear, and then this one is for the rod for the cluster gear. So you want to take all of those out. Okay, so to take the cluster gear out of the top, there's a shaft that runs along this direction. It's a 1-inch diameter gear. And this shaft here just punches out. Now, there are bearings and everything in here, so when this comes apart, you want to make sure that you don't lose any of the bearings. They're just needle bearings and they're not caged. There are also some shims in the front and in the back, and you want to make sure that you get those back in the same direction when you put it all back together. See if I can get some pictures on the inside. So if you look here, there's some shims. There's 2 shims down here on this side, and then on this side there's 1 shim. All right, so now we're gonna just pop this gear out. There's a seal on this side, so I like to take and just punch it right out. You can see all the needle bearings coming out. So we'll just want to pull those out and set those aside. You don't want to lose these because you can't find them. All right, I got them all. Got to get a longer punch to punch the rest of that shaft out. There we go. So this one has just a thrust washer against the edge. This one had a thrust washer and then a spacer. And the spacer, this thrust washer went on first, and there's a little groove down inside the trans that it kind of fits on. So it just goes in there like that. Okay, here's the thrust washer that came off the backside. Now, one of the things to tell on this cluster gear is how chewed up the teeth are on this surface here. Because there's no synchros in first and reverse, these tend to get really beat up and tore up. This one is really not too bad. So I'm gonna reuse that one. Just keep them all together how they came in. Okay, now we can look down the bottom here and see everything else that is going on. So we can see everything down inside the trans now. You've got your syncro here, and then you have second gear here, and then you have first gear back here. And so what goes bad on these, what gets chewed up, is that first gear down in here, those teeth, and then also the teeth on the cluster. So, and those are interchangeable with all the trances except for the 37 top shift. The 37 top shift has a different diameter shaft that goes through the cluster. And if that goes bad, is what you have to do. We'll just look over here really quick. So here's a 37 top shift, and it's been bored out to accept the larger 1-inch shaft here, so that we can now put a different gear cluster in. You can see this one, it's pitted and chewed up pretty bad. So this gear set's no good. All right, let's get back at this trans. All right, so there's bearings down inside the pilot. So the input shaft and the tail shaft fit together like this. Okay, so when you pull the tail shaft out of the input shaft, these roller bearings may fall out, they may not. This one just happens to stay in there. So that's how that all looks and how it all comes apart. All right, so there's some snap rings in here that are a really pain in the rear to. All right, so we're going to want to pull the tail shaft out and separate the syncro from the input so that we can then pull the input out and slide the tail shaft forward. There's a keeper screw on the front of this one, so I'm going to remove that screw so that the input shaft can go forward. Going to remove the clutch or the shift fork on the inside of here to give me some more room. Sometimes it will let you. Come on. There we go. Got the shift fork out. Now it should be a lot easier. Still nope. There we go. Now we got the syncro out. Snap ring off the front. Okay, so now we got the input shaft out. Input shaft looks really nice. Now we can slide all right, let me take this snap ring off the back, push it forward so I can look at the very front of the trans. much easier. Okay, see that? I can then get way down in there and mess with that snap ring. It's a pain in the butt. It's the worst part of this whole job, is trying to get that snap ring out the front. That was easy as pie. Never had that one come out so easy. So that's a snap ring. See if we can get a good picture. Okay. So now that that snap ring came off, we can then pull second gear off. I got the bearing all cattywampus on the inside. There we go. See that? Just like that. Okay, we got reverse gear. Got the thrust washer. We got another thrust washer. We have first gear, which looks really nice. And we have second gear. Okay, so it goes back on like this. There's a special washer here. Goes on there. Then that snap ring goes down in there. And then the syncro goes on there. And then the input shaft goes on there. So that's how it all works. Pretty simple. Not much to it. So like I say, this is the same for the 38 plus Oldsmobile. I've been told that the 50 and up LaSalle, so 38 to 49 LaSalle are the same. The 50 and up, 50 to 54 or 55 LaSalles, I've been told that this taper and the syncro is different, so you can't mix those up. You got to look at them. So that's all there is to it. Taking this apart, this 50 Oldsmobile has the speedometer gear on it. In order to get that gear off, you have to press it off. If you change this bearing, you have to press this off. We're gonna reuse this bearing. It feels really good, so we're just gonna reuse that bearing. So all right, we'll do some other videos later that show putting it all back together, but that's, in a nutshell, that's how you get it off. If you can get a pair of snap rings, so this is how it's difficult, because this snap ring is down inside this groove. So in order to get that snap ring out, you have to be down inside of this gear, and then spread the snap ring out and get it out. This snap ring is the worst part of the whole job. So hopefully you can find that informative, and if you have any questions, you can put comments in the below, and I'll try to answer any of those questions. So thanks.